Well, there's an old saying that goes, numbers don't lie. And there's a certain pattern in sports that I want to discuss here in this mini episode. And that is why so many athletes go broke after a few years. And every year we see headlines about athletes going broke after earning millions of dollars. And it's almost become cliche at this point. But it's anything but funny. And this issue is widespread and systemic problem in sports, especially in the NFL and the NBA, where careers are short and financial pitfalls are just about everywhere. So let's get into some of these facts, the numbers and the stories. Why do so many athletes lose their fortunes, and what can we and the league do about it? Because believe me, this isn't just about bad spending habits. It's about the lack of education, systemic failures, and a high pressure lifestyle. Hear me. High pressure lifestyle. You don't, I'll get into that later. And it's pretty much lifestyles that most of us can't even imagine. Let's just put it that way. And the numbers don't lie. So let's start here. The NFL did a study in 2015 by the National Bureau of Economic Research. And it found that about 16% of NFL players file for bankruptcy within 12 years of retirement. Considering the average NFL career lasts just about 3.5 years. That's crazy numbers. Now, for NBA players within 5 years of retirement, an estimated 60% of former NBA players face severe financial challenges, according to the NBA Players Association. But here's the question, y'all. Why is this happening? These players are making millions. So what is going wrong? Well, I think part of it is the immediate money, the immediate wealth, but it's also lack of preparation. For most athletes, that transition from college to pro sports, um, if you're going straight from college, minus the NIL deals, because let's face it, a lot of these kids aren't getting NIL deals. And that's a huge financial shock. Imagine this for a second, being 21 years old, fresh out of college, and suddenly handed a multi-million-dollar contract. So let that sit with you for a second, okay? That sounds like a dream. But if you've never been taught how to manage money, it's more, to me, like a big ass ticking time bomb that's just waiting to go off. So let's break this down a little bit. Now, the median NFL salary, which is about $860,000 per year, with the median NBA salary being over $4 million per year. But remember, that number is inflated by superstars. Most players aren't getting 9-figure contracts after taxes. The agents got to get their cut. And of course, you got to have a big house, and then you got to have the big car. The take home pay is often half or less. Now, for example, a $1 million contract might only leave $400,000 to $500,000 in the player's pocket. But for someone who's never had real money before, it's easy, very easy to overestimate how far that money will actually go. Now, here's a real life example. Okay, let's just keep it in real life. Let's see, if you take Vince Young, a former NFL QB, for those who didn't know, who earned over $35 million during his career. Now, at one point, he reportedly spent $5,000, y'all, per week at the damn Cheesecake Factory, and once dropped $15,000 on a flight just because he wanted more leg room. Imagine that. Young eventually filed for bankruptcy, y'all. This is a story that reflects the dangers of unchecked spending. And to be quite honest, this is going to start long before a lot of these players even become professional athletes. So If you talk about, the short career window, another huge factor is how little time athletes have to actually make their money. What I mean is this: the average NFL career lasts just about 3.5 years, as I said earlier. That's not a lot of time to earn a fortune, especially considering the physical toll of football and what that does to your body. Now, NBA players fare a bit better with an average of 4.5 years, but even then, that's still a short window compared to most professions. I mean, think about it. Auntie and uncles have, 10, 15, 20-year careers at GM and Ford. Now, maybe they're not making the money that these athletes are making. That's a longer period of time. And over time, they make enough money to just have enough for retirement, enough to live on, pay bills, and so on and so forth. And you think about a 4.5 year, 3.5 year span, that's very, very short. Now, when athletes do retire, their income, it dips. It often plummets. Now, without proper planning, they're left to stretch a few years worth of earnings across a lifetime. And let's not forget, y'all, about those injuries. A torn ACL, a back injury, or a concussion can end a career overnight. I've seen it. I've worked with them. Many players don't have savings or insurance to handle the fallout. This is 1000% accurate. Okay. I know firsthand experience working with professional athletes and also just in your regular, your regular everyday life. Ask yourself this question: do you have savings in front of you for an emergency? Or are you spending everything that's coming in immediately as you get it? Do you have an insurance policy, life insurance, health insurance? Do you have yourself set up for success for the after the fact? Well, you have to understand things like this. If you are being exploited and you are giving bad advice, whether you are a professional athlete or not, that also sets you up for failure. But one of the most tragic aspects of this issue is how often athletes are exploited. Many hire financial advisors or business managers they trust only to be taken advantage of. We've seen that before. Former NBA star Tim Duncan, I think he earned over like 250 million, 240 million, sued his financial advisor for mishandling millions on millions of dollars in investments. If you think about Warren Sapp, he lost much of his 82 million fortune to bad real estate deals and unpaid taxes. Now listen, taxes are something else. And I understand that. Keep the IRS off your back and out your business, whatever it is, pay it or get on a payment plan to pay your taxes. That's number one. Number two, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin that you don't even know, that don't even come to any of the functions, and all of a sudden you got friends and stuff that have business investments, air quote. And they all just come to you for the money. So now you got a barbershop in your name, you got a daycare center in your name, this car wash, that business, this business, and all of it is under you. And then what happens when those things fail? So does your investment. But then you have to think there's the pressures from friends and family. Many athletes, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds. I'm saying that politically correct for the point of this podcast. But if we were just sitting having regular conversation, those who come from the hood, okay? So I got to balance out my conversation here. I got one audience that'll understand it this way, and then I got my regular folks that's going to understand it another way. If you are from the hood, you feel obligated to support everyone around you. Just like I mentioned, this gives away a lot of your money. Invest in dubious business ventures and spend beyond your means to maintain a certain type of appearance. For who? Who do you need to keep up appearances for? I hear people say, I'm not going to divulge how much money I make, but there will be signs. Well, why would I need to care that you drive a McLaren? Why would I need to care that you can afford all of these big name brands who really don't care 2 ounces about you? Why is that important? But then again, some people may, argue and say, well, that's my money and I could do with it what I want to. All right. That is facts. But then please remember there is a back end to everything. Your lifestyle and inflation and overspending is going to cost you. And we can't talk about the financial collapse without addressing that, especially with athletes. You got the luxury cars, the mansions, the jewelry become status symbols that then everybody else wants to mimic. So you live in a lower developed community, but because you see LeBron James with a 1,052,100 whatever dollar Cuban link chain around his neck, you think you need to go and get something like that. Why? Okay. We can even go a step further and say in hip hop, why do we need to have 8,000 different chains on? So then the people who aren't making that see that, and then you want to emulate that. Of course, you can wear whatever you like. No question about that. But then that becomes status symbols. And then you have players that often feel pressure to quote unquote keep up with their peers, leading to excessive spending. Are you tired of overpriced groceries and limited options at the supermarket? Because I know I am. Well, try Misfit Marketplace, where every box is packed with delicious organic produce at up to 40% off retail prices. That's right. You get your fresh fruits to colorful veggies. Misfit Marketplace delivers quality ingredients straight to your door. Visit misfitmarket.com and use code POD20, that is POD20, to get 20% off your first order, and tell them that Dr. T sent you. Eat well, save money, and join the Misfit movement today. All right. So let me see. Tio has, this Lamborghini. All right. Ocho is going to match it with the upgrade. Okay. So then you have the Mannings. You have this Richard Mille watch. So I'm going to up it and I'm going to get this one. Oh, okay. So now all of a sudden, that $2 million watch doesn't really ring off so well when those finances start to drop. NBA star, if you remember, Allen Iverson reported once that he bought a $500,000 necklace and famously spent money on an entourage of friends and his family. See that obligation? You made it, so everybody's waiting on you. And then you end up having what they call survivor's remorse. But it's not just about showing off, it's also about the lack of understanding. And many athletes don't really realize that the wealth needs to be managed, not just spent. So, for the people who listen to this podcast, and I do have athletes who listen to this, trust me, they let me know that they heard me. Okay, well, let me ask if you are hearing me now. And everyone, are you managing your money or are you just spending it? Sit down with yourself for a minute and ask, what assets do I have? And how much do I have in front of me in case something happens? We all know what's going on in the world right now. Well, I don't know about the world, but we all know what's going on in the United States at this moment. Okay? At this particular moment. So what do you have? What are you managing? Do you need to have Starbucks? No, not every day. Oh, okay. Do you need to stock up on groceries? Yes, the best you can. Get them frozen bags of fruit and veggies. Keep that tucked off in your freezer. Get you bags and bags of meat if that's what you eat. But do you need to actually go buy another vehicle right now? Do you really need to go and spend about $100, $200 on a pair of sneakers? Oh, okay. So, as far as checks and balances, it starts with you. But then you have also that lack of post career planning. And that's another major factor that's a failure to plan for your life after sports. Now, once playing days are over, many athletes struggle to find new income sources. Now, it was a report by the Players Tribune that found that fewer than 20% of retired NFL athletes transition into full time careers. The problem is worse for athletes who really just skip college or leave early, as they often lack the education or skills needed to compete in the job market. Some sit behind a desk because they are well versed in their sports. They get an analyst job, but as you can see, they flip and change that around like people change their underwear, socks every day. And I hope you do. Okay, I really hope you do, and not leaving on stuff more than you need to be leaving it on. But you get my point. Okay, some leagues like the NBA have introduced programs to help players transition, but the support is often just a little bit too late. And some athletes do take the time, to go back to school. I will also tell you this: working in surgery, working in the hospital, you often see a lot of retired athletes as reps, or they become doctors or surgeons. Worked with many of them over my time in the operating room. And then also, you have this mental health factor. Now, you can't ignore the emotional stress that comes with financial struggles. We all have had them. We all have. And many athletes experience identity crisis after retiring. They're no longer the star anymore. That's the problem. And that's the loss of purpose. And that can also lead to depression, substance abuse, and other destructive behaviors, as we have seen. Former NBA player that was in Cleveland, Ohio. Breaks my heart to see where he is now. Delonte West. He has struggled and continues to struggle with homelessness and mental health issues after his career, despite earning millions. So the other factor is where's the emotional support? Because without it, even a well-managed fortune can evaporate quickly. So some might ask, what is the solution? What actually can be done? What can athletes do? And what are the leagues going to do, in essence, to try and break the cycle? Well, for one, it needs to be some type of financial education. And they leagues, wherever you are, should make financial literacy a mandatory part of rookie orientation, and then implement it in ongoing player development. That's one thing that I think. The other thing that I can think is smart contracts. I get that everyone needs to have an agent, okay? Because maybe you don't understand all the legal jargon and all of that kind of stuff, and you want to be sure that what you're saying you understand before you sign it. But players should negotiate deals with deferred payments, in my opinion. Let me give you an example. Bobby Bonilla, he's a former MLB player, if you don't know, receives $1.19 million every July 1st through 2035, long after his career ended. And people wonder why the MLB has the best contracts. But then here's the other thing: I think they need post-career support. Expand the programs. Get your players that are vets and seniors that are getting ready to retire, and help them transition into new careers, offering networking, education, grants possibly, or mentoring, something that will help them continue the support that they need to sustain the financial literacy that they don't have currently. Give them some health benefits. Better long-term medical coverage can reduce the financial burden of post-career injuries. It's too many athletes that have come and seen me that have to pay out of their pocket because they don't have any insurance. then if you know that they're not going to offer it, then that's something that you need to strategically every annual year go and get your own policy and pay into it. You have all of these millions that you're wasting on other things when you could be putting it back into yourself. Build a legacy is my last solution that I think. And I think that most of these athletes should focus on building generational wealth through investments, savings, and businesses that align with their passions. And I have plenty of episodes within my catalog you can go back and listen to that gives you high yield interest savings accounts, different investments. If you only have $500, how would you divide that up? And trust me, these are things that you should be looking into now. The rich are going to get richer right now. And that's what we are saying right now. So even if you are not an athlete, what are you doing to set yourself up for success? Have you put your money into savings? Have you looked at smaller investments so that you can have something in front of you? You know, a lot of times I sit down with youth athletes, I sit down with high school athletes all the way up to professional in every sport, baseball, basketball, soccer, football, wherever they need me to come as far as sports medicine, injuries, that's where I'm at. But a lot of times I have a message to some of my athletes when I have a moment to help them understand a few things that I've heard them complain about. And it is simple. Your career is short, but your life is long. And then they stop and look at me. And they'll say, Dr. T, you are absolutely right. And I have to expound on that in a way in which they can understand that your earning potential is always going to peak early. It's always going to be early. So you need to plan by that and do it wisely. Build a team of trusted people around you. And always remember, no is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. And focus on your long term. And then just in general, remember that behind all the headlines, y'all, okay, for the fans, I'm talking to the fans now. These are real people that face real challenges. And a lot of times they don't have the support that they need. They are workhorses. I've never made it to professional basketball, but I played when I was younger and in college, recreationally now. But when you are at that level, aside from your passion, they are work horses. You have to get up, crack of dawn, condition in the off season, condition in the regular season, travel day in and day out, go on the road for road games away from your home. And even when you're tired and you just want to stop for a minute, you know you can't. So think about that when an athlete has just finished 48 minutes, 52 minutes, 4 quarters of basketball, 4 quarters of football, multiple innings in baseball, and they are tired. And before you jump on social media and call one of them and ask, because maybe they signed 100 jerseys, not 101. And yours was the one that they didn't get to. Just remember that they are humans too. And I also want you to remember that you are just as important as the athletes. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time to rest and reset the same way that they should be able to allow to rest and reset. Take the financial advice throughout this particular mini podcast and apply it to things that can help you in your own life. Because at the end of the day, we are all simply just human beings in this world trying to figure it out.